Let's take a look. I see we have Kath from the Philippines. We have Kelle Boyle from South Africa. Ucheche from Nigeria. Hello to everybody. Thank you for joining us. I know you probably have lots of questions on the H-1B visa, and we are going to be taking them all today. So please put them in the chat. Please let us know where you're watching from, and we will be monitoring the chat as we go along. Let's bring out our special guest this morning. Hello, Deirdre, Michelle, and John. How are you all?
Hello.
All right, everybody. Well, let's see what we have coming up on today's show. We have a special show. We're going to be covering a lot of good information. We're going to be talking about immigration pathways to the U.S. We're going to be talking about EB3 versus H1B, and we're going to be myth busting. So I know our expert panel here has got a lot of expertise to share. Before we get started, why doesn't everybody introduce themselves? John, let's start with you.
All right. Yeah, my name is John Dawson, and I am an immigration attorney located in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Awesome. Well, I know we are going to have lots of H-1B questions for John. Michelle, let's go next to you.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Kilkenny. I'm the AMN International Senior Director of Immigration Licensure and Credentialing, and I am with AMN International for 36 years this year.
Wow. Well, happy anniversary to that. That's amazing. You are a wealth of knowledge, so we're excited to pick your brain. And last but not least, let's go with Deirdre.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Deirdre O'Regan. I am the Senior Director of Recruitment here at AMN International. I work very closely with Michelle. We are both from Ireland, if you may not have already guessed that. And I've been with the organization exactly half the amount of time that Michelle has, 18 years. So thanks for having us, Danielle.
Still a long time. You've definitely got a wealth of information as well. So we are excited to hear from all of you. Okay, so let's get started. So we're talking about H-1Bs and EB3s. There's lots of chatter all around about H-1Bs and EB3s. We want to make sure that we're getting everybody good, correct information. Let's start with just understanding what is an H-1B, what is an EB3. So John, I'm going to turn to you first. Can you explain to us what is an H-1B? And let's just caveat that everything that we're talking about today is going to be applied to nurses and allied healthcare professionals.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so an H-1B is essentially a temporary work permit that allows a company to sponsor a foreign national for up to 3 years at a time to work in a professional occupation. So the idea is that for a position to qualify for an H-1B, it should be one that requires at least a bachelor's degree in a specific field.
Okay, so the things that I'm hearing are a temporary work visa, and to qualify, you need to have a bachelor's degree in a specific field. That's kind of at a basic level what an H-1B is. Okay, we're going to jump more into that. Let's talk about what an EB3 is. Michelle, can you take this one?
Sure. An EB3 is an immigrant visa. So it's a permanent visa. And when you come to the United States with your visa and activate it, you become a lawful permanent resident of the US, AKA you get a green card. And on top of that, as opposed to H-1B, your dependents will also get a green card.
Okay, so you threw in some nuggets there about the dependents. We're definitely going to talk about that more as we get through the show. But what I'm hearing is a green card is permanent residency. Is that right, Michelle?
Correct.
Okay, so we're talking about a temporary work visa. We're talking about permanent residency. And then we have one other type of visa that we are not going to focus on today that a nurse may qualify, and that is a TN visa. Deirdre, can you explain to us what is a TN visa?
Absolutely. So you may qualify for a TN visa if you are a Canadian or a Mexican passport holder. They up to 3 years with the opportunity to adjust your status and get your I-140 filed and a green card if that's the route that you choose. We do have TN opportunities available right now, and our recruitment team would be more than happy to assist you through that. So if you have not, please apply today so that we can get that process started for you. But yeah, that's another route that you can take if you do hold a Canadian or a Mexican passport. We're not going to focus too much on that today, but we have done a show on it previously. If you want to go back to our archives, and I'm sure we'll do one in the future as well. So thank you.
Okay, so a TN visa is for somebody who has a Mexican or a Canadian passport, and it can be a much faster option. Is that right, Dee?
Correct.
Okay, so if somebody is watching and they have a Mexican or a Canadian passport, they may be eligible for a TN visa, and they should apply to us directly. And we can give them more information. If you look back in one of our shows, we'll try to post the link in the chat. But today we are going to focus on the H1B and the EB3. Okay, so if you are watching along and you're thinking, I want to stay up to date with immigration updates, we have a whole page dedicated to updates on the visa bulletin. We're going to post the link in the chat. The link is kinetics.com/RN-immigration. You can go to that page. We have our monthly visa bulletin updates where we do our immigration Q&As on our Onwards and Upwards show, and you can go see what the latest is on immigration. So that's one option for you. We also have those guidebooks I saw in that scroll down view that we were just looking at. You can download free guidebooks on the EB3 and the TN visa. We're going to put the link in the chat. These are free guidebooks, everybody. Take advantage. Make sure that you're educated. Make sure that you understand what you're signing up for. And you can get these also at our website. Okay, so let's turn back to our discussion on the EB3 and the H1B because that's our focus today. John, can you explain to us kind of in basic terms, what are the differences between them?
So, yeah, I think, yeah. The main difference is that the H1B is just for a temporary period of time. So it's typically approved for 3 years. You can extend it. Whereas the EB3, as was previously discussed, leads to permanent resident status, essentially. So I would say those are the main differences, along with EB3 at the end of that process, allowing your dependents to also be permanent residents and work in the U.S.
So, John, a follow-up question. How long can a nurse stay on an H1B, and what happens when it expires?
So at the end of that 3-year period, initial 3-year period of an H1B, it's possible to extend it for an additional 3 years. So for a total of 6 years of H1B time.
Okay, got it. And then so Michelle, I'm going to turn to you for this next one. How does the EB3 green card differ in terms of employment status and residency options?
Well, if you come on an EB3 permanent residency, you've got your choice. You're a lawful permanent resident. You have the same rights as anybody else to work in the States. You can work for anybody once you're on a green card, as opposed to the H1B, which is employer specific. So it's more difficult to sort of move around when you're on a H1B. And also the biggest difference is your dependents are permanent residents with you and can work, whereas with the H1B, your dependents can't work. So that needs to be taken into consideration when you come on a H1B with a family. So you're a one-income family.
So what I'm hearing is, if you have a family and a spouse that you're hoping can work on the H1B, that may not be an option for them. Is that right, Michelle?
Correct. I mean, I think John would be more qualified to answer that, but I would say
okay,
the case, depending on the profession.
And Michelle, I'm going to turn to you again. What kind of timelines are we looking at for an H1B versus an EB3? Is one faster than the other?
Yes, of course. The H1B, probably you could be here from filing to starting your assignment 4 to 6 months. On an EB3, Right now, it's 2.5 years to 3 years. I mean, for the rest of the world, which is most of the countries, the cutoff date is January 1st to 2023, which is 27 months ago, 28 months ago. And so it's taking that long before you're eligible, and then you have to be scheduled for an embassy appointment, and then you have to travel. So you're talking 2.5 to 3 years right now. And that probably may get a little longer as time goes by, as cutoff dates are slower to move forward. So that's the difference. H1B is a faster option to get here quicker. And then I'm sure we'll talk about you can adjust from a H1B to a permanent residency.
Okay, so we had a question from Song Min who said, would an H1B be a faster option to get to the US than the EB3? So it sounds like yes, Song Min, the H1B would be a faster option. And I see John kind of going like this. But what would be something that Song Min would need to be considering on the alternative? It might be faster, but John, can you explain what would be kind of, that's a positive? What are sort of the cons that one needs to consider when we're thinking about the H1B?
So yeah, I think Michelle mentioned some of these earlier, but the negative to the H1B is that your spouse is not going to be able to work on it's called the H4, what the spouse of the H1B holder has, at least in the near term. There is the potential to get some work authorization later on. And then the fact that the H1B ties you to one specific employer. It is possible to have another employer take over your H1B, which requires another filing, but certainly a lot less flexibility than the EB3 green card, where you can eventually work for any employer.
Okay, so I want to come back to that because you said something interesting that we want to come back to. But first, I want to ask Deirdre. I see there was a question in the chat that says, is it easy to get an H1B visa? So you are our senior director of recruitment. You kind of see what's going on in the marketplace. Is this really an option for a lot of nurses? I know it sounds quite enticing, especially for someone who doesn't have a family. Is this something that they can really get?
It does. It sounds very enticing, particularly to those who are not traveling with the family. John and Michelle have already alluded to the fact that could be very challenging, given the fact that they are unable to work in the near term on an H4. Yes. So there are a couple of things that you want to consider. First of all, when we started the show, John mentioned that you have to have a bachelor's in order to qualify for an H1B. But on the other side, the client or the facility or the employer also has to qualify, and bachelor's must be a requirement for that position. So when you look at how many opportunities are available that meet that criteria, there are not going to be as many options as, say, an EB3. So with an EB3, yes, many of our clients prefer a bachelor's, but we also have clients who will accept a diploma. So there are a number of things there are a number of criteria that must be met, both on your experience and on the position that you are applying for.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that it may not be as widely available because the employer is the one who needs to qualify to hire H1B nurses. Is that right, Deirdre?
Correct. And most of our nurses who come to us have a bachelor, they're bachelors anyway, so they would qualify. But it really is on the position that you are applying for, making sure that a bachelor's is a requirement in the job description.
Okay, so we've talked about the H1B and how it might be a faster option for our nurses to consider. John, can you share with us some of the benefits of a green card in terms of, long-term job security, living in the US? Why might somebody rather choose that option?
Yeah, so if you go with the EB3 and become a US permanent resident, then you have the ability to work for any employer. You don't the green card's valid for 10 years. You can, of course, renew that. But essentially, within 5 years, if you choose, you can apply to become a U.S. citizen. So, yeah, it's really the path to pursue if you're looking to, live in the U.S. permanently. And I know this has been the traditional path for nurses. So I think that is a great option, that everything's taken care of. Many individuals in the U.S. go through different temporary statuses and keep having to extend and wait many years to get a green card. And so to be able to enter the U.S. on day one and already be a permanent resident and kind of have your future secured, I think is a huge benefit.
All right. So what I'm hearing is long-term security, really, with the EB3 green card. You're coming as a permanent resident. You can bring your family. They can work. It just sounds like it might be a long-term plan for coming to America and reach that American dream. Okay. So Deirdre, I see a question I want to ask you. So I know we said that the bachelor's is required for the H1B. Is there anything else that's required? And what else is required from our nurses for an EB3?
Okay, so let me start with an EB3, as those are the options that are going to be more plentiful. So first and foremost, you have to pass your NCLEX, and most of you who are listening in today already have done that. You must currently be working in an acute care setting, bedside. So if you are not doing that right now, I would highly encourage you to secure a position where you will be working bedside. You will need English for the EB3 on the staffing and the direct hire side. You don't need it in order to be filed. However, you will need it in order to secure your visa screen. And what I will tell you is that depending on where you are looking to land here in the United States, really look at that state and what English exam is accepted. So an example is PTE is not accepted in all states. If you are looking for a wider option, then we would recommend that you take IELTS, because it is accepted more widely and you don't want to limit yourself. And then in your state of placement, if you've already taken English and that's not accepted in that state, then you certainly don't want to be doing it again. So highly encourage you to take IELTS. But yes, just to summarize, current acute care experience, NCLEX, English will be needed at some point in the process, and you must continue and stay working until the time of your deployment to the United States. So that is the EB3. H1B, we talked about bachelor's. You also need current experience, bedside. In order to file the H1B, you will need your visa screen. So you will need to have current English. And again, depending on the state where you are looking to be or where you're interviewing with one of our facility clients, then please make sure that you are checking the English requirements for that state and make sure that it qualifies. So hopefully that helps. And I will be happy to take any other questions. I gave a lot there, but I'm sure that Danielle is going to summarize it perfectly for us.
I'm going to try. I don't know about perfectly, but I'm certainly going to try. I might need your help.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it sounds like for an H1B, the biggest thing is a nurse needs to have a bachelor's. So correct. That and bachelor's, current experience, and the other big thing would be to have their English test passed, because they're going to be applying probably pretty quickly, right? Because they're moving pretty quickly. Okay, yes. So that's for an H1B. And then for an EB3 nurse, an NCLEX pass, we always say that's your golden ticket to getting started. Your English will need to be passed by the time that you get to your consulate interview. So you don't need it to apply, but you will need it during the process. And as he said, a plug for take the IELTS, because probably more widely accepted, but just make sure that you're checking in with your case specialist. Current acute care experience. So while your application is processing, you want to still have that. Did I miss anything else?
No, just and NCLEX for both, of course. So but it's it's really competitive right now. Right here in the United States, insofar as positions and applicants. So you just make sure that you want to put your best foot forward, and really, if you do get an interview, regardless of whether it's H1B or EB3, that you are just bringing your best self, and that's where you work with our recruitment team, our case specialists, in order to prepare you to have a successful interview.
Okay, thanks, Dee. I actually have a follow-up question for you. I see we got lots of questions in the chat, so we're going to try to get to as many as we can. Rona is asking, given the ongoing immigration issues, do you think we will still be able to pursue the American dream? You know, I think for a lot of people who are watching, they're probably feeling quite discouraged by what's happening with the visa bulletin. The timeline feels like it's extending. Everything seems like maybe it's slowing down. What advice would you have for a nurse who's watching and thinking, is this really still an option for me?
Well, the first thing is 100% yes, it is. Yes, we are in retrogression. It's a delay. It's not a permanent delay. It's a delay. And while it can be, upsetting and confusing as to why it's not advancing as quickly as you may have thought, there are things that you can control, right? So there's a lot that you can't, and focusing on that is not going to get you here any quicker. But what I would recommend is really focus on those things that you can control. If you have not passed your NCLEX yet, I would get started on that right away. If you have not passed your English, I would get started on that right away. And those things are going to keep you motivated, keep you engaged, keep you busy while the processing is happening. But don't get discouraged. Both the three of us, Michelle, Danielle, and I are all immigrants. And, it wasn't a short process. It wasn't an easy process. Have to stay motivated, stay engaged, really focus on the things that you can control. If you're working with AMN International, you're already getting that support. And we keep you posted every step of the way on what's happening with your processing. But don't get discouraged. You've got to keep going, and all you can focus on is doing the next right thing. And and the time will go quickly. I can't believe that we are in 2025. It will go very, very quickly. And Danielle, Michelle, and I are testaments of when you stick to it, it will happen for you.
Okay, so there you have it, Rona. And I saw you have you dropped a comment. Thank you for addressing my concern. I don't think you're alone in that, Rona. I think there are a lot of people who are watching and are feeling, is this something I can really do? And we are here to say, yes, it is. As Deirdre said, control what you can control. Do what you can do to get started on your journey, and you will make it here. Retrogression does not mean a denial, does not mean don't come. It just means slight delay. Okay, so we got lots of questions. John, I'm going to turn to you next. So can a nurse file an H1B even if they've already filed for an EB3? What kind of risks or downfalls should they maybe consider?
So yes, the short answer is yes, it is possible to go for an H1B even though you already have an EB3 either pending or approved I-140. I guess the first thing to clarify would be, it is the same employer sponsoring both applications, because one question would just be a contractual one, right? What sort of commitment do you have to your EB3 employer that's already sponsored you if you're moving to an H1B employer? But aside from that, I think that the key inquiry that the employer and the law firm who's handling these cases would need to look at is just making sure that the positions are consistent. So if you're on a path to get an EB3 green card that only requires an associate's degree, and you're going for an H1B, which of course is going to require at least a bachelor's degree, we might need to look into a new EB3 filing to make sure the position requirements line up, just so there's consistency in the information we're giving to USCIS between the two positions.
Okay, and on the flip side, John, can one easily switch from an H1B to an EB3? Is that something that can happen?
Yeah, certainly. So, the benefit of the H1B is you're instead of waiting out the retrogression period in your home country, you're already in the US and you're working. And so your employer can also file the EB3 I-140 for you, and you just continue to work on your H1B, and you're already in the US waiting for your priority date to become current to switch over from H1B to a permanent resident.
Okay, so a lot there. We're definitely going to come back to that. Let's talk about processing times. So Michelle, I want to talk to you. So you kind of alluded to the fact that it might be faster to come on an H1B. How do you compare how long it takes from application to arrival for an H1B versus an EB3? I know we keep saying longer and shorter, and right now, we're at the whim of retrogression. Things could change, but generally right now, what are you kind of seeing?
So with H1B, most H1Bs we would file using premium processing. So they would be filed and they would be adjudicated within 2 to 3 weeks. So once the application is submitted, I would see clinicians being here between 4 to 6 months, because also the embassies will schedule their appointment very quickly. The nurse or the allied health professional can schedule their appointment as soon as their I-129, their H1B is approved. So that's what makes it faster. There's no waiting around. There's usually appointments available within a few weeks of them being approved, where they can go for their interview and be issued their H1B. So that's what makes it faster, and because they're premium processed. But with EB3s, there's visa retrogression, which, by the way, I just want to remind people, and I think because a lot of people don't realize this, but I was there back in 2005 when we got this huge retrogression. And basically, since 2005, there's been visa retrogression, except during COVID. So this isn't anything new. We have always had a type of retrogression, sometimes longer than 27 months, sometimes a little shorter. But it's because people are still looking for EB3s. There's still a demand for them. But with the EB3s, we file them with USCIS. Now, USCIS timelines are quite long right now, and that's for everybody. They're regular filed because you're not going to be eligible for at least 27 months or longer. But the EB3s are taking in excess of 15 months right now at USCIS. Once you're approved, then your file goes to the National Visa Center, and there you can get through the process pretty quickly. You pay your fees, you put your biographic information through, and then you're at documentarily complete or documentarily qualified. And you stay there. That's where you stay until finally your priority date is current and you can be scheduled. The National Visa Center will schedule you for an embassy appointment. Now, those embassy appointments can take longer as well, depending on the embassies and what their backlog is. Some are faster than others. So again, the EB3 timeline is 2.5 to 3 years, depending on your embassy and on visa retrogression. But with H1Bs, there really is no delay. But it's really important that you have everything before we file the petition. And that's different for nurses as opposed to medical technologists or other technologists. They just need certifications when you're a medical technologist or a histotechnologist. But a nurse needs to have NCLEX and needs to have a license overseas, but also needs to have the license in the States. And that can be another drawback. You have to either have the license in the state where you're going to work, or you have to show eligibility for that license in the state where you work. And that's why we look at things like English and where you took NCLEX and how you qualify for a particular state. So there are extra steps that a nurse has to take over allied health.
Okay, so what I think I'm hearing, Michelle, and you dropped a couple of really good nuggets in there. The one thing you mentioned is that this is not the first time we're experiencing retrogression. This has happened before. AMN has been around for a long time, and we have experience navigating this. So if you're feeling a little bit unsure, a little bit anxious, a little bit concerned, don't worry. We are here to help you. We're here to help navigate this delay. It does not mean that you are not coming. It just means that it's a delay. And as Michelle said, when you choose who you want to partner with to bring you to the US, you want to make sure that you're coming with somebody who understands what is happening, can be transparent with you, can help you navigate your options. And that is what we really aim to do. The other thing that you mentioned, Michelle, is that there are a lot of considerations when you're trying to figure out the H1B, the EB3. There are licensing considerations, there are English considerations, lots of things to think about. If you're watching along and you're kind of feeling like, oh man, this is a lot of information, my head is kind of getting explosive, it's okay. We're here for you. We're going to help you figure this out, and we're going to help you figure out what's going to be the right option for you. So whether it's staffing, whether it's direct hire, whether it's the H1B, whether it's the EB3, our recruitment specialists have got a wealth of knowledge, just like our panel here, and they will help you figure out what is going to be the best path for you. So don't worry if you're watching along and feeling like, oh man, how am I going to jot all these little notes down? Lots of things to consider. We're going to help you. Okay, so we have got lots of questions in the chat. Deirdre, I'm going to turn to you next. So Song Min has another very good question I'd like to ask. I'm very curious about this. I found most hospitals don't sponsor H1B visas. Is EB3 sponsorship more preferred by most hospitals in the US? So you kind of have a gauge, Dee, on what's happening in the marketplace. Does it seem like this is more of a preference for hospitals in the in the US?
It goes back to my previous comment about the specific position qualifying for an H1B. So they must have bachelor's as a requirement, and they're not as plentiful as an EB3 opportunity. So, we recently, I'm sure you saw it on our social media over the last couple of weeks, where we worked with a client who was looking for H1B nurses. We're very successful in filling all of those positions, but that particular position required a bachelor's, which was then allowed the facility to process or to start processing H1B applications. Again, those job opportunities are not as plentiful as ones that qualify for an EB3. So it's not that the clients or the facilities are not willing. It really just goes back to if they meet the requirements of that H1B petition.
Okay. And would you say that most are eligible or ineligible? Are you seeing that there's a higher demand for EB3 versus H1B just because some of them might not be eligible?
100%.
Okay, so good for our viewers to know. So it might sound very enticing and interesting. Of course, there are drawbacks to consider, but you also need to make sure that it's available for you. And Dee, I saw a follow-up question that now I have lost. Here, Chris May Friel is asking, is the H1B visa offer from AMN under direct hire or under staffing? So are there staffing options for H1Bs? Are there direct hire options, or does it just depend?
So the short answer is both. But if you are looking for a staffing opportunity and you are a medical technologist or a histotechnologist, then there are going to be more opportunities for you. If you are an RN, unfortunately, those opportunities are not as plentiful on the staffing side. We recently did just have that I just mentioned it. We're working with one of our clients in the Tennessee area, and we were able to work with them on H1Bs, and that was on the direct hire side. So if you are a medical technologist or a histotechnologist, we do have opportunities where you will qualify for an H1B on the staffing side. And right now, we've just kind of wrapped up filling those H1B positions with a client of ours in Tennessee. So hope that answers your questions, but happy to take any follow-ups.
Okay, so let's see. We have lots of questions in the chat. I see the clock is running, so we're going to try and get to as many as we can. I see a lot of questions asking about, will my priority date get current? I have this priority date. I know a lot of people are probably watching and feeling anxious about the movement of the visa bulletin. What advice, John, would you have for our nurses who are watching and are feeling anxious about, is it going to move? When's it going to move? How's it going to move? I'm sure you get these questions all the time, and I see a lot of these going off in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think, again, like what's been mentioned earlier, right? This retrogression has been a fact of life for this process. Know that your date will become current at some point. In the meantime, I think what's important is to make sure you're completing all of your requirements, control what you can control. If you're at the NVC stage, make sure you're getting your civil documents, your police clearances, all of that in order and moving timely through the process, because the date that you become documentarily complete, documentarily qualified, the earlier you do that, the better. I know embassies and consulates also, not just, obviously you have to have a current priority date to get an interview, but also a lot of times within that, embassies will look at the order that candidates became documentarily complete and prioritize the ones who became documentarily complete earlier. And, keeping your skills active, that's also been mentioned, right? Making sure you're continuing to work in a clinical setting. That's really important for the hospitals here in the US, because they want to verify that, when it gets closer to your interview and your actual arrival. So I would just say, again, focus on the things you can focus and stay in touch with AMN on all the different requirements, but just continue to have faith, because that date will become current at some point.
Good advice for sure. I think it's hard to look at something that you can't control and not hope that it will change. But as John said, control what you can control. Do what you can do. Deirdre gave you a list of requirements, whether you are looking at the EB3 or the H1B. Make sure that you have that. Make sure that you have your golden ticket, the NCLEX, and make sure that you are all ready and set up for success when you apply to AMN. Michelle, I kind of saw you going like this a little bit when John was talking. Do you have anything to add on advice for our nurses? I know, there's lots of people posting in here about different priority dates. Do we think it'll become current? When will it become current? You've been doing this for a long time. You've seen a retrogression. What kind of inspiration do you have for these nurses?
Again, like John said, you will eventually be visa eligible. It will happen. And we've had many people on our programs before who have gone through that themselves. But I would say for the EB3, get your place in line. Like, just get applied to USCIS. That's the important thing. That's the first step. Then everything else, it is going to take a few years. So really, for each person, it's different. It has to be why do you want to be in the States? And if it's long term and you want to bring your family, you may want to consider waiting for that EB3 so that you can all come together. Or if it's that you just want to be here now, well, then look for that H1B opportunity with, the EB3 also thrown in, because, you can have dual intent. And it really is your personal circumstances and how well you're doing where you are right now and what your reason is for coming. But the EB3, you need that applied. And so to get your place in line and to sort of have a priority date. And so, again, that's what I would say. Don't wait. Get your place in line.
Now. The time is now. Get your place in line. Get started. Don't make it any longer than you need it to be. Okay, good advice from Michelle and John. So Deirdre, I see another question. I'm going to turn to you. So Quasiar is asking, why is AMN not filing H1Bs for its applicants who are already on the EB3 process? So I think maybe some people are watching and thinking, why can't I just not get an H1B? Sounds like it's faster. Sounds like it's better. Why can't I get that?
Right. And again, you know, I kind of feel like I'm repeating myself, but I think that a lot of people kind of cycle in and out of these shows. So if you're in the EB3 process, it might be a question that comes up. You're like, okay, well, I see on social media that AMN is looking for H1Bs. Why can't I just switch to an H1B? So first of all, those positions are very limited. And it is a matter of not having an opportunity that qualifies for that H1B. So that is the main reason why you're not getting an H1B filed, because there are no opportunities that meet that requirement. You're in the EB3 process. I think that John and Michelle said it. You will become visa eligible. And I know that it can be disappointing and disheartening when you see the visa bulletin come out monthly, but just know it is moving. It will move, and you will become visa eligible and get here to the United States and get your green card. But again, just to summarize, it's not that we don't want to. It's just that the H1B positions are very, very limited right now for RNs.
Okay, there you go. So there's a good answer. I see a lot of questions along that same line of questioning. So there is a good answer from Deirdre. Thank you, Deirdre. So John, I want to turn to you. So what types of nurses or country of origin or family kind of background would be better suited for the EB3 route? And who would be better suited for the H1B route? Are there factors to consider? You know, I know.
Yeah. So I think the one main factor that we've talked about for between EB3 and H1B has been, just the family composition. So if you're a single nurse, H1B might be a better option for you, allow you to get to the US faster, and you don't have the concern about, having a spouse who is unable to work. The EB3 for the families, with a spouse and children, can be a good option because it allows everyone to work. Now, as far as nationalities go, I don't think there's any distinguishing there. I suppose with the H1B, maybe the one nationality that does spring to mind would be India, because I know typically the backlog for Indian green cards is quite lengthy, 12 or 13 years. And so I know a lot of times those nurses are kind of left behind and not recruited because hospitals don't want to wait that long of a time. But with the H1B, that does open it up to maybe other nationalities that have longer wait times in the EB3 category.
Okay, thank you, John. That actually leads me to one of the questions that we have in the chat. Ridish is asking, can I know the status of EB3 visa nurses in India? So Ridish and anybody else who is looking for an immigration update, you can go to our website. We're going to drop the link in the chat. It's kinetics.usa.com/RN immigration. And you can get all of up-to-date information. Our monthly immigration live shows are posted in there. And you can see the visa bulletin for all of the different categories, and you can get an update there. So for anybody who is interested, please feel free to turn to our immigration update page where we have a lot of good information. So I want to make sure that we have some time to do our myth busting, but I see we've got lots and lots of questions. So we will try to take as many as we can. If we don't get to your questions, we will try to answer them at the end of the show. But I do see one here that I can answer. Miki is asking, can you get a priority date even without IELTS? So just as a reminder to everybody, the priority date is the date that your application is filed. That's when you get your place in line. And yes, good news, you can get that priority date even without an English exam. You do not need that English exam to be filed, but you will need it by the time that you have your consulate interview. So there's some good info for Miki. So let's turn to our myth busting. So I know that there is a lot of information out there on H1Bs, on EB3s, whether you can do certain things, certain pros and cons and benefits. And we want to make sure that everybody who is watching along understands what their options really are. So we're going to bring up slides of myths, or they might be true. I don't know. We're going to find out. So if you can post in the chat what you think the answer is to each of these questions, and then we're going to get a little bit of background from our expert panel. So the first question is, H1B is faster and better because it's a work visa. So if you think this is true, please post that in the chat. If you think it's false, please post this in the chat. And then we're going to give our experts a chance to answer. And some of these might be a little bit more complicated than you might be thinking. So H1B is faster and better because it's a work visa. Okay, so Marley is saying true. So John, what do you think? Do you think this is true or false? What kind of nuances should we be considering here?
Yeah, I mean, it is, as we've talked about, the H1B is definitely faster, potentially 4 to 6 months for the entire process to be over here and working on it, compared to the EB3 green card of 2.5 to 3 years. There are, of course, the caveats that we've talked about. There's not as many options for H1B available. So, I mean, it's not going to be a realistic option for maybe every nurse on the call today. And as we also mentioned, there's the issue of your spouse not being able to work initially, and it also, tying you to a single employer. It's better in some ways. EB3 is better in other ways, but I would agree that definitely faster.
Okay, so a little bit of true, a little bit of false. Kind of maybe depends if you have a family, what your long-term goals are. There are a lot of factors to consider, but ultimately it is faster. Whether it's better, that's really just going to depend on you, is what I'm hearing. Right, John?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's turn to our next question. EB3 is impossible during retrogression. Do you think this is true or false? I see we got lots of people answering, which is great. Everybody's playing along with our myth-busting quiz. Is it impossible to get an EB3 during retrogression? Is this true or false? Michelle, we're going to turn to you. I see a lot of people are saying false.
Yeah, I would say false. I mean, every month there's interviews at embassies for nurses and other professions who are current, whose priority date has been met, who's before January 1st, 2023, if you're Western world. So I would say that's false.
And our
might be slower, but it's not. It is possible.
That's true. And our hospitals still hiring, Dee?
100%, yes.
Okay, there you go. Get your place in line. Get that priority date. That's how you secure your place in line. You will get here. Retrogression means delay, or at least for me, that's how I like to think about it. It's a delay. It's not a denial. It's not a don't come. It just means it might take a little bit longer. Okay, so next one. Nurses can pick any hospital or location if they come on an H1B. Do we think this is true? Do we think this is false? Let's see in the chat what our audience is thinking. And Dee, we're going to turn to you for this one. Is this one true or false?
This is false because the H1B is an employer-specific visa. John may have more background information, more legalese around it, but I would say false.
I think the audience agrees with you. This is false. All right. Everybody knows their stuff. Everybody's learned a lot. Okay, so you can file an H1B even if you've already filed your I-140 for an EB3 visa. John, we're turning to you for this one. Looks like our audience is saying false. Is that right?
No, you can't. I mean, even if you've already filed the I-140 for the EB3, you can still file an H1B. So that is definitely possible.
Possible, but what do you need to consider?
Well, you should consider, ideally, it would be the same employer who's already sponsored the I-140 for you, who's then filing for the H1B, because you'll likely have a contract with that EB3 sponsor with a commitment period, and so you would have to look into getting out of that contract and what you would need to pay if you're going to change employers. So. And you would also just want to make sure that there's consistency in the EB3 I-140 position. What are the minimum requirements? That it's not just an associate's degree, but a bachelor's degree that's required for the position, so that it does line up with the H1B that you're then pursuing.
Okay, thank you, John. So I want to hone in on something that you actually said earlier. So you said you have to think about this as what about your contractual obligations? So for somebody who's watching along, they might be feeling like, well, you can do it. Why don't you do it? But I think one thing that you mentioned is you have to think about who the sponsor is. If it's a different sponsor, that may be like breaking your contract. And we talk a lot about how your contract is like a marriage. You are making a promise to somebody. They are making a promise to you. So you really want to take into consideration what that break may look like. If that really is the right thing to be doing for you, you should talk to your case specialist. You should talk to your lawyer and make sure that that is going to be a move that is an option for you. So I think while something might be possible, there are definitely a lot of factors that you want to consider, especially your contractual obligations. So thank you, John, for taking that kind of difficult one. All right, next one. Let's see, what's our next question? Every healthcare facility offers H1B and EB3 pathways for every available position. What do we think? Let's see if everybody has learned on our show. What are the options for H1Bs and EB3s? Okay, I see somebody who says true. Interesting. Another one says true. Oh, somebody says false. Michelle, what do you think for this one?
Oh, I say false. I think those trues were to the previous question. H1B, there aren't as many healthcare facilities that can offer H1Bs, either through staffing or direct hire. But EB3 is, everyone can do the EB3. But the H1B, not unless they have a mandate for be it bachelor nurses or bachelor occupations.
Okay, so if the healthcare facility needs to qualify for the H1B, so they may be more limited in availability, but the EB3, if a hospital is hiring for an international nurse, that could be probably an option for every facility. All right, let's go to our next one. Only certain specialties qualify for H1Bs. Deirdre, we're going to turn to you.
So for AMN, yes, there may be limited opportunities for RNs and opportunities for medical technologists and histotechnologists. So this one is true / false, because John had mentioned earlier that an H1B is for qualified professionals that meet a certain criteria. But for AMN International, there are limited opportunities for RNs, and we do have opportunities for medical technologists and histotechnologists. So I think that was a little bit of a trick one, Dan.
They're all a little bit tricky. A little bit yes, a little bit no. Some are clearly yes or no, but yes. Yeah. For AMN purposes, we are only talking about nurses and allied healthcare professionals.
Correct.
All right. And the last one. The H1B process for direct hire and staffing positions are the same. What do we think, everybody? The H1B process for direct hire and staffing positions are the same. you know what? I don't even know the answer to this question. So I'm going to turn to Dee again. And Dee, if you can explain a little bit more on this, because we actually didn't even get to this.
So the H1B process, the process in the generic sense is going to be the same. You need to go through the same process. However, if you are working and you accept a direct hire opportunity, the facility is your employer, is your sponsor, and so you may be working with John and his team on facilitating all of that paperwork, all of that documentation, and get you through the process. Your case specialist, your case manager on the direct hire side will also be kind of walking you through that, making sure that the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, that we've got everything right. On the staffing side, you'll be working with Michelle's team. All right, so Michelle's team facilitates all of the processing internally. So what that means is that Michelle's team will file the H1B, we'll get all of the documentation gathered from you, do that process on your behalf, keep you posted on approvals, requests for evidence, whatever may happen down the line. So it really is just a matter of who is doing the processing with you or for you. But regardless if it's direct or staffing, you need to do the same process. It's just a matter of who's facilitating that for you.
Okay, so different sponsor, but same process is what I'm hearing. Is that right?
Michelle, would you agree?
Well, there's a slight difference. When you're a third-party staffing agency, we have a little more compliance to handle. So we have a little more information that we have to have proving sort of the nexus of information. So yes, it's a little more complex, but H1Bs are complex compared to EB3s.
Right.
There's a lot more complexity involved in it, whether you're nurses or allied health. So I would say that there is a slight difference between direct hire and staffing, but nothing that can't be overcome. Right. For us, it's more, there aren't as many facilities in America that qualify for H1Bs for nurses. Medical technologists, they're fine. Physical therapists, because they all have advanced degrees or bachelors. With nurses, diploma nurses are still accepted. So if a hospital still accepts certified or diploma nurses, then they can't meet that requirement of needing BSN. So it's a little harder to qualify for nurses.
Okay, so lots of nuances when it comes to the H1B. And if you are watching and thinking this may be an option for me, we would be happy to help you. Please feel free to apply to our website. That's amnhealthcare.com/international. And our recruiters are there and happy to answer any questions you may have. So we've learned a lot on this show, but it's confusing. When it comes to immigration, it's confusing. I've been doing this for many years now, and I'm still learning new things. I see our panel are still learning new things. It's a process, and we all are in it together, but we are here for you and here to help you through that process. So we are almost up at the hour. I want to give everybody one chance to give one final piece of advice as we do ending all of our shows. So any words of advice for nurses who are considering the H1B or the EB3, what would you like to leave our audience off with? Deirdre, let's start with you.
Absolutely. And I love these shows because it really is an opportunity for all of us to learn. You've got a panel of experts, me on recruitment, Michelle on immigration, licensure, and credentialing. I learned something today, so I'm thankful for that. But what I would say is just stay on the course. There are things that you can do to keep yourself motivated, things that are within your control. We've spoken about that a lot today. Is just, it may, and Dan says this all the time, it's not a no, it's not a don't come, it's just a delay. And you will get here, you will live your American dream, but lean on us for support, lean on us for encouragement, to keep you motivated throughout your journey, but just stay the course.
Thank you, Dee. Great words of advice. Michelle, what about you?
Again, stay the course. I just want to tell you, I still have nurses coming through that we filed back in 2009 who are coming up from India, or other nurses who decided to stop. They filed in 2016 and now they're coming and we're bringing them through. And so just, I hate to say have patience because that's hard, but know that your time will come. You will get that visa. And we're here to guide you. And just, we want transparency. Tell us everything. We'll advise you as best we can. But it's all about being open, and so that you're ready for when you get that embassy appointment and you walk out with that visa in your passport. And it's a wonderful feeling. And we celebrate every win. Every win. Every time a nurse gets their visa or a med tech gets their visa, we celebrate it. So stay the course.
Very wisely said, Michelle. Stay the course. We celebrate every win. And that really goes to show there are still people coming. You know, I think that word retrogression feels scary, feels a little bit uncertain, but there are people coming every day. We are so excited every time that we have a new arrival to the US, that we help somebody reach their American dream. It's something that Dee, Michelle, and I have all experienced ourselves. And it's an amazing feeling. There's truly nothing like it when you step off that plane and realize I'm here. And we want that for all of you. So stay the course. And John, last but certainly not least.
I would just, I mean, echo all of that, what's been said, but also just in general, just an optimistic view to end this on is really just that the need for nurses is real and will continue to be there in the years ahead. And, you know, when you come over, you will make a big difference. And we hear from hospital clients all the time how difficult it is for them to find qualified nurses. So you're really playing a vital role in the US when you come over.
100% agreed, John. You know, I saw there was a comment in the questions about supply and demand. Will there still be enough demand? The answer is yes. If you look at the predictions of the nursing shortage for the next 5 years, it's only predicted to grow. So take this opportunity and run with it. It's an amazing opportunity for international nurses, international med techs, whether you come on the H1B or the EB3. Stay your course, don't be discouraged, and know that we are here for you and here to help through your journey and make sure that you can reach your American dream. So thank you to my expert panel. I know this was quite a difficult one. H1Bs, EB3s, lots of legalese. We're all learning here. But thank you all for being here today and for sharing your wise words of wisdom. I know I appreciate it, and I can see our nurses appreciate it as well. So thank you to all three of you.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
All right. Well, hopefully that was helpful to you if you were watching along and you wanted to learn a little bit more about H1Bs and EB3s. You know, there's this quote from Tom Hanks that I always reference if you've been watching our shows. If it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. It's the hard that makes it great. Whether you decide to come to the US with AMN, with direct hire, with staffing, whether you decide to come with an H1B or an EB3, as long as you stay the course, you can reach your American dream as well. And we would be honored to be a part of that journey. So let's talk about our future upcoming shows. Let's see our schedule. So again, our shows are from 7 to 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We have a show this coming Friday. We're going to be talking about the Daisy Awards for Extraordinary Nurses. And then on April 11th, we're going to do our immigration Q&A, our monthly update with our legal experts on what's happening with the Visa Bulletin. We also have podcasts. So this season, we have podcast episodes we would love to suggest that you check out. And we have our AMN Academy. So let's bring up that schedule. It's every Monday at 5 a.m. Pacific Standard Time with our partners 9.09er, Aspire RN, and iPass. So these are free classes. If you haven't passed your English or you haven't passed your NCLEX, make sure to take advantage of these classes. Control what you can control and pass that NCLEX, that golden ticket. Make sure that you pass that English. You're going to need that before you come to the US. So thank you all for joining us here today. I hope you've learned a lot. I know I certainly have. The H1B, the EB3, lots of different options for you. And if you would like to come with AMN, we are the largest provider of both direct hire and staffing options. You can apply on our website. It's amnhealthcare.com/international. And our recruiters are on hand, ready and waiting to take your questions. Everybody is super excited and super happy to help. So if anything has come up from the show and you want to learn more, feel free to apply and we would be happy to discuss with you. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you all for learning with us. Onwards and upwards, everybody. Bye-bye.